Hello everyone and welcome back. The High Elves are up to 7 legendary lords now, and 6 of which we can talk about today. We've had these 6 for some time now, but they are getting a nice refresh, some of them getting some mechanical changes, and overall a High Elf update. I wouldn't really call it too much of a rework. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump in, we're going to split the video into sections, and just talk about all the changes. Timestamps will be available below in case you're looking for anything specific. I don't imagine this video to be as large as the Northka rework, as we've already seen quite a bit. So for the purpose of this video, I'm going to be using Alarielle, as TYRION and TECLIS will be featured later in the video with their own specific changes. Alarielle is a very comfort character, so it's not that difficult to work through, and overall it's quite fun and it avoids any issues of Nakari somehow getting his hands on the Sword of Cain. So let's jump into the first few changes. The tech tree has been dramatically changed. It's very, very large now, which is really good, considering that the tech tree for the High Elves originally was pretty lackluster. So there's 2 sections, the hosts and the realms. The hosts is going to feature your troops, and there's a lot of updates there to specifically make your High Elves some of the best fighters possible, considering that these are 1,000-year-old warriors. I mean, that's kind of expected, right? So you can get sections dedicated to like the dragons or even to your horses. There are upkeep reductions here too, so don't worry about that. Just like the vanilla version, some techs are held by buildings. I know that can be a little annoying for some people, but it actually works out a lot better now, considering that a majority of your troops that you're going to be using throughout your early campaign are going to be boosted up from the infantry advancements. So you've got time to explore, you've got time to build up and then focus up on the other troopers. In most cases, you're going to be focusing up on infantry anyway, because Lothan Sea Guard, Sisters of Avalon, you know, the usual very, very strong units. The formatting of this section alone just felt a lot better. You can stop wherever you want, by the way, if you want to read through it, but I'm stopping at least a second or two just so everything gets shown off. It does feel like it is better. I've managed to play quite a bit with the High Elves now, and yeah, my troopers do feel more deadly. It's about time. Like, they were always very strong, but it was always focusing around certain configurations. Now you've got that open movement there where you can theme your armies a lot more and you can make them feel like they are the martial warriors that everyone knows about in lore. There are some other buffs here, like ambush defense, spell intensity for all characters. Believe me, very useful, especially when you start playing as TECLIS. As you know, TECLIS is incredibly goated right now, and he gets even stronger as time progresses through the campaign. But yes, this has been a massive change that needs to be celebrated. Now we're going to be talking about the other sections too, because we do have the second section known as the realms, and it's going to focus very heavily on your administration. Again, kind of a throwback to the old system where you're going to have to spend money and you're also going to have to get certain buildings. This can be stuff like, you know, certain resource buildings and so on, but I would argue that it feels a lot better because it's going to focus around the natural progression. I don't personally agree with the whole using cash to unlock tax situation, but it is better, the bonuses are better, and they are very noticeable. Believe me, it could have been worse. Well, it was worse with its original incarnation, but considering all the bonuses that you get from natural buildings anyway, I don't think that it's too much of an issue. You can focus more on your troops more than anything else, and then go back there for extra bonuses once you feel like you have enough time. Unifying all for one isn't that difficult, so money coming in isn't really going to be that much of a problem anymore. Okay, so we talked about the tech. Don't worry, there's still a lot more to go. There's just so much to talk about. A quick side note, buildings very much remain the same, but everything's been slotted in quite well. So you're basically getting most of your roster in tier 3 anyway. But going into major settlements, you can see that everything fits very, very well. Honestly, I think that the unit acquisition rate for the High Elves is probably the most cleanest in terms of every other faction. So yeah, it's not too bad. And there's been a small change to commandments where Tribute to the Phoenix King is now providing a flat amount of influence per turn, influence being very important to your campaign going forward, even more so when you're playing as Tyrion, but we'll get to that a little bit later. It does feel a lot better. Influence gain overall feels a lot better now. And considering that not only is influence tied to a new mechanic, but also, you know, picking up lords and stuff with good traits, you're going to be getting a lot more of the better lords than you were before. Alright, so we have to talk about the brand new mechanic, Patrons of the Realm. This is going to be not only how you confederate the other High Elf Legendary Lords, but you're being able to get a bunch of bonuses, as you've got a tier system with each seat in Orth-1 that you control. As that tier gets higher and higher up to level 3, you'll be able to pick up a lot of bonuses for specific characters. Think about it very similar to that of the seat system for the Empire, and it is in fact very, very similar, but even more advanced. Now, I do have to warn you that you're going to have to spend influence here. Thankfully, there are a lot more sources for influence now, or else this would be a major struggle balancing getting lords, dealing with random events, and then dealing with this. So influence is going to allow you not only to pick up those seats, but your influence is going to be tied to confederations also, because you're going to need to get influence to get the seats, get all the way up to the full 3rd level, and finish the requirements needed. So we're going over all the different sections first, and you can see that, yeah, there's a lot of really good bonuses. So depending what lord you place where, you'll get different bonuses, so you can tailor specific lords to do specific things. I kind of like this, especially now since we have 4 different types of lord options. Well, technically more when you go into all the variants of the spellcasters. Confederation requires 2 seats and specific seats at that, and you can see that everything kind of ties into what you control. When it's in white, it means it's controlled by a high elf. When it's in red, it's controlled by another faction that isn't a high elf. So if you have Morathi invading you, or the current dark elves, or whatever. It highlights every single region in Orth-1, which is really nice. It's very detailed. I am kind of hoping that once we get more elect accounts for the Empire, we'll see an update more or less in line with this, obviously with its own different flair, but the Empire one is pretty much a basic bitch compared to this, I'm not going to lie. The vacant spots you can take, and that's going to require a little bit of influence too. So we're going to be going through all of these. There's so much here, because you might have noticed there is like a new resource at the bottom, and that's going to tie you to a campaign for Confederation. Also, it's actually quite impressive, really. I didn't expect the Patrons of the Court to look this good. But I can say from my own experience, it just really seamlessly fills into your campaign, especially as you start progressing more and more, which I think ultimately is a good thing, because the High Elves haven't really changed that much. It's just getting added flavor to what we already know. So we have to talk about the next section, which is Court Unity. This is how you're able to confederate, by the way. And you've seen the prerequisites, right? So there might be some placeholder stuff. Basically means you've got to do a certain amount of things before you're able to confederate, meaning, take a few colonies and then get to a certain point with the favor of the Phoenix King, which you would normally pick up by just uniting Orth-1 and getting into some combat. Every single faction that has a legendary lord is confederatable, which is fantastic. As far as I'm aware, this is the only faction in Tides of Torment which got confederation mechanics, which is a bit of a shame, but you never know in the future. I know that they're doing like 1 faction or race per DLC, and I think it's probably just to make sure that everything works as intended, rather than doing 3 of them and having them all break at once. So I can appreciate that. Favor of the Phoenix King is the resource exclusive to here, so you get this by battles, diplomacy, certain faction events, and diplomatic attitude towards High Elf factions. You lose it by battles if you're fighting against other High Elves, diplomacy, that pops up during negotiations, all the usual stuff, diplomatic attitude towards rival factions. If you have problems with other High Elves, you're incentivized not to fight with other High Elves, basically. Faction stuff, and then raising and sacking Orth-1 regions. So if you are sacking a city in Orth-1, even if it belongs to the Dark Elves or whatever, you will lose some of this favor. This favor is part of getting to be able to confederate with other factions of the High Elves. You'll passively get it, don't you worry, just don't turn on the other High Elves. Rather than just destroying them outright to take the regions, you can work with them, then confederate them, and take their lands. Remember what I said about influence being important? You've got stuff like this popping up, where you can get a pretty tasty hero, but it's going to cost you. So you're going to have to plan ahead to know if this is going to be worth it for you, in case you want a seat very early on, or if you're going to have to defend one of your own seats. Very, very important there, because you can lose out on a lot of bonuses quite quickly. As there are situations where you're going to have to defend your seats, you can easily give it up, by the way, and just take them back. I am not 100% too sure if the other factions can confederate other factions. I'm imagining so, but I've not been able to see it. I've been playing a lot with the High Elves. Like at this point, I've got about 70 hours into the DLC, I haven't slept in a while, by the way. But I've yet to see anything like Tyrion just confederating TECLIS or whatever, and I've let them take over 4 regions of Ulthuan because I was too busy fighting amongst other areas. Speaking of which, you're incentivized to go out, because there's areas known as Elven Colonies, which have like either powerful buildings or other special effects for yourself. The interesting thing is not everything has been kind of listed as an Elven Colony, because I'm pretty sure there's a few in Bretonnia, and I just haven't seen them. They'll have a little icon on the side, just like everything else, like, you know, Norscan heritage areas and so on. But let's continue, because we do have a few more things to go over. So let's go and try and confederate one of the lords. I would highly recommend waiting before you start confederating. While it is fun to play Pokemon, you can harmonize with the other lords and basically just start going and taking over the world and confederating them when you feel like they've already served their purpose. There is going to be a lot of bickering between the factions, because they're each going to try and take over the seats from each other. But essentially what you need to do is just have another lord, put them in the seat, which can cost a bit of influence, and then spend more influence to be able to just take it up the tiers, right? And you're going to need certain locations. So like, for example, with Alifanar, you need 2 full, complete, specific regions. Well, provinces, and then also getting up to tier 3, which means that you're going to have to spend a decent amount of influence too. Again, a big reason why I'm saying to wait a little bit, because that way you can just go straight through. There is no cooldown to level up the tiers, but there is a cooldown when you take the seat for about 3 turns or so, where other factions within the High Elf territories will not be able to take the seats from you. Once you've gotten the specifics out of the way and you've gotten to a certain point with the favor of the Phoenix King, which, by the way, Finnaber asks for a lot from you, but does fuck all in the game, right? But just putting it out there, because maybe he can like do something for himself for goddamn once. But yeah, you'll confederate, you'll get in there, and then everything belongs to you as expected, which is great. Alifanar does generally quite well. I'm just using him as an example here, purely because like it's just a showcase campaign, that this isn't a campaign that I'm going to continue. So he's conquered a lot. And again, I would actually rather not confederate very early, let him do his own thing, take out Malekith, take out Haganef so it doesn't bother me as Alariel, and that way I can confederate when I'm done with everything else. My plan, if I was going to continue this campaign, which I'm going to start a fresh one, obviously when I start the streams, which by the way I'll be streaming on twitch.tv/thegreatbookofgrudges today, my plan would have been go deal with Morathi, confederate Tyrion, because he's a character that's there and just kind of bothersome, because he has most of Ulthuan later on, and then start confederating all the others. That's how I plan to go when I'm focusing around the donut itself. When I'm playing as Aisling, it'll be very different, because obviously that character is on the other side of the world. Lords and heroes are still going to cost influence, but the generation of influence is still higher. I mean, this is more than I would normally have by turn 7, and yeah, you can get more. I did use a bunch of effects, and there was a few events that popped up. So I would have been closer to 300. Tyrion's influence gain, by the way, is wonderful. Like, I think it's a bit overtuned, but if you're from Creative Assembly and you're watching this video, you heard nothing, yeah? Cool. Alright, so I started off a fresh campaign to show off the Lord and Hero skill changes alongside the skills for the new Lord and Hero. Fresh campaign is basically done because we've had a new build. This happens a lot during the early access period, so yeah, things change every now and then. So we're going to have to talk about just like the general thing, because not a lot has changed. Basically, like the mages have gotten some brand new skill points, nothing really drastic, and it's going to be like this for all the heroes. Basically just finally giving them extra lines if needed, just to bring them in line with Warhammer 3 and the fact that they have a lot of levels to go and sometimes not enough skill points to have fun with. The only one that, as far as I've seen, that hasn't changed is the Handmaiden of the Everqueen, and that's because the Handmaiden already had multiple different skill lines for its own purposes, so it's perfectly fine. All of them have been brought up. The Lore Masters of Hoeth are pretty damn good right now too, reducing the upkeep for the Hero's Army when it comes to Lore Master units, well, Sword Master units. As far as I've seen, there are no heroes nor lords which I would deem useless in any way, shape or form. Everyone is quite specialized, and that means that you're going to have a reason to pick up more than one. The benefit also is that you have so many different magic schools, obviously now up to 10 different laws of magic for your heroes, which is great, and it shows that there's just so many options there. Same thing with the lords. While most people are going to go for the archmages, because let's be honest, Yeah, it makes sense. The princes, the princesses, and not only that, the sea helms all have their uses, with the sea helm being quite a defensive lord, still having quite a lot of unique style skills. I like what's being done with the high elves. It kind of just throws you back to the tabletop, so it's good to see all that variety coming into play. We're missing the anointed, but I think that's only a matter of time at this point. I'm going to say, whilst we're at here, the Mist Mages I found a lot more useful in campaign than I expected them to be, which is great. Isles definitely feel a lot better now, which is something that I wasn't really expecting too much. And that's not anything against the rework and so on, it's just I don't like elves in general. Which kind of fits with the name, right? These are actually the last achievements that I need to fully complete Warhammer 3, High Elves, Dark Elves and Wood Elves. So it looks like I might have a reason to finish off the High Elves. Maybe you could do it on stream. I do wonder what's going to happen if we eventually get the Anointed of Asuryan as a Lord, because we do have 2 melee lords as it stands, obviously the prince and the princess. Well, the princess is more range, isn't she? Wait, 3 lords, because we have the Sea Helm now, who is anti-large, so maybe the Anointed of Asuryan, if he does come in, could end up being some sort of, I don't know, just hyper-aggressive armor piercer? Probably might be the only way to go about it, to at least make it quite unique. Both the prince and the princess are useful in their own rights. As you've been able to see, the skills have changed a little bit, and to be fair, like, everything seems quite good. But now we have to talk about the big one, right? The Sea Helm is the last one, and it's interesting in a way, but also I kind of hoped that there'd be a bow. I know, we already have one with a bow. It's just, there were certain builds on the tabletop that you could do, so I was kind of hoping for that, because I really like my Sea Helms. I've got so many of them painted, and I need to paint a few more, actually, because I've got a few Sky Cutters to do, when I can finally stomach painting red and white again. So the Sea Helm, it's more the thing of like, oh, well, I'm going to make a sea patrol army, you know, so keep on the theme and go with that. The buffs there are quite good. The buffs to the bolt throwers are quite good too. Again, also, the Sky Cutter mount had some bows on it too. It's like 1 or 2 shots, but it would still be quite useful. But all that being said, we do have to jump into the other stuff. There are specific changes coming into TYRION and TECLIS. We're going to talk about that. We're almost at the end. You have no idea how much I've spoken into a microphone for the past week and a bit. It's been tough. We're going to start off with TYRION, and I haven't really seen any major changes to anyone's faction and lord effects, barring just adding in, you know, like, oh, there's a new mechanic, or, for example, with TYRION having extra recruit rank for the ship's company, which is actually really nice, because they're so early on, and if you just want some cheap units to deal with the problems, that works out quite well. So, yeah, it's perfectly fine. I've gone through all the other lords, haven't really seen any major changes, and I think that's okay, because most cases, their stuff was touched up, I think, for the release of Immortal Empires, so that's perfectly fine. So, into campaign we go, and same old game loop as you can imagine, the usual deal with the Dark Elves, solidify yourself, then prepare to deal with the Dark Elves at the north, Nakai, and the very common invasion of Count Noctilus, who seems to push into Ulthuan, and from what I've gathered, he seems to attack a lot, which is obviously because of the water attacking. That's something that's been introduced here. Wulfric gets it, Lokia gets it, basically all the naval ones do, and it does make the Vampire Coast a lot more aggressive. Noctilus more than anyone else. And actually, it's not too bad. I mean, they never did anything before, so it's good. Tyrion's exclusive mechanic is called the Champions of Ulthuan, and you've got 2 tiers there, Air and Alliances. Now, a lot of people are going to see this and go, well, that's Karl Franz's mechanic. And essentially, yes, that's exactly what it is. And from the perspective of looking at different leaders, I mean, that's perfectly fine. It's exactly what you expect. A lot of these courts are going to be very similar to each other, so I rather something that's just reskinned and works as intended than something convoluted that's just not going to work well. So, as you can expect, once again, influence is going to be used here, which Tyrion does get a lot more influence for his campaign. Air is going to focus on just a lot of effects there. So you're able to do a lot of stuff like grant a bunch of experience to a target army, which by the way affects all the heroes in there too, which is wonderful. You can deploy a militia force, you can even start getting your troops to have extra movement again, just in case you want to keep that fight going. It's a fair amount of choices, and yes, there are cooldowns, which I think works out quite well, so you can't overuse it. Ultimately, again, just like Karl Franz's mechanic, we liked it in Karl, we like it here too. I've yet to see a reason whilst playing as Tyrion where none of this was not useful. Like, everything had its uses non-stop. And it's the same thing with the Alliance tab. So the Alliance tab is very different because you're going to get a load of bonuses depending on the theme of the character that you're getting the support from, right? So either the White Tower, the Mistwalkers, all the same, right? So it's buffs and debuffs. So buffs towards your troops or debuffs towards the enemy. Very, very powerful ones, cooldowns once again, and they do cost different types or, well, different amounts of influence, but it's got its theme. The only way that you can use this is if you're allied up with the faction or if you've confederated them. I think in most cases for the more veteran style players, you're going to wait until you've confederated them to get those benefits, as I'm not going to sugarcoat it, and you guys are all very much aware, the alliance system for Total War Warhammer is absolutely atrocious, and there is no reason to ally up with factions unless you're going to be drawn into wars that you just don't want to deal with. I get that a lot of people are going to say, well, that's not a lot for Tyrion, but keep in mind that everything else that has changed for the High Elves affects you too, so this is just kind of adding to it. It's on the same line as what Franz and Gelt got during Thrones of Decay, which, speaking of Gelt, we're going to be jumping onto the TECLIS version now. So, yeah. Tyrion did receive a few changes to his faction lord effects, just adding in some extra stuff, which ultimately fits very well with not only his character, but just his general lore. It's mostly just adding in the mastery of the elemental winds and obviously his new mechanic, but that all is pretty much expected for what's going to happen in his campaign, because it's going to be quite fun, actually. Like, it's probably my favorite one of the two reworks, I think. Mostly because loads of magic and, well, you'll see for yourself. Everything is going to be linked up to a brand new resource for you known as the Scrolls of Knowledge. This is going to be gained from battles, from buildings, and other stuff, sometimes events, all the usual stuff that you can expect, and it's spent on the secrets of the White Tower. This resource is going to be as important to you as influence and everything else, because if you want a lot of player power, this is where it starts to get really funky. So, the Secrets of the White Tower is a mechanic very similar to that of Balthasar Gelt. Well, it's just basically reskinned, but again, works out very well. There are 5 different nodes, and they focus around all the general winds of magic that you have access to. There's repeatable actions and single-use actions. The repeatable ones will allow you to get army buffs, so this will allow you to get, for example, cataclysm spells and other generalized bonuses for your faction. You can target the armies that you wish to target for this, which again works out very well. I really like the idea of cataclysm spells being used more and more often, especially with spellcaster lords, because, I mean, you know, they're so cool and you only get to see them in most cases during the whole Realms of Chaos campaign. Nobody is playing that Realms of Chaos campaign. Like, oh my god. So, how it gets even better here is obviously you can get certain single-use actions like getting heroes, getting some faction effects like extra recruit rank for archmages and mages with the lore of high magic, or loremasters Hoeth, mist mages. It depends on the specific section that you're going to. This is really nice, and it again fits very much on the theme as the Balthasar Gelt mechanic. You remember how powerful Gelt was? Well, TECLIS is around that region, if not more so now. And, you know, being the High Lore Master, you expect this character to be absolutely devastating on the field. I like the interpretation. Again, the same thing. I don't mind if a mechanic gets reused, as long as it's done with a little bit of uniqueness and also fits the theme of certain factions. It's important to realize that sometimes reuse of a mechanic is better than something that gets implemented, which is totally unique and then doesn't work on release. And really, when it comes to like colleges or even Secrets of the White Tower, both of them being very much the same, yeah, you know, like the Spellcaster Lords, the Colleges of Magic and the Tower of Hoeth are essentially the same thing. There's not much that you can differentiate them from, and that's perfectly fine. This also adds in a little bit of extra strength for you to deal with Kairos, because Kairos is a bit of a terror right now. The AI knows how to change off the spells quite well and hit quite hard. After you're dealing with Kairos, then you have to deal with, you know, Krokgar becoming a problem. Now you've got some player power to be able to hold back the enemies a little bit, which is very, very useful, especially with Wurzag being moved down there a bit too, which can be a bit of a problem. Wurzag is very, very strong. It does feel like TECLIS is now better represented by his lore than he was before. I will say that it's kind of weird that the High Elves taken so long to be brought in line with those of Warhammer 3, considering how much content they got in Warhammer 2. You expected them to be put in a weird, faster priority list, but it's just inconsistent when it comes to that. The last thing, by the way, obviously with TECLIS, is that he has a bunch of passive abilities, because he can get basically just like the passive abilities for the main lords that he has access to, well, the whole faction does, it brings in a lot. It's not going to be as strong as, say, for example, him being Kairos level, which is a bit of a shame. I feel like that could have been implemented a little bit too, considering that TECLIS is supposed to know all the laws by the point of the end times. But we're not at the end times yet, so I guess, yeah, why not? And those passives can actually be quite strong, so I'm not going to knock on it. At the end of the day, it's still a very good change, and you do get like wind cost like by 20% for all your spells. You've got like so many different types of spells that it shows that he's really, really strong. Chain Lightning becoming stupidly cheap, you get Flames of the Phoenix. It's just overall, like, he's fine. I don't see any problem whatsoever with TECLIS. Oh my god, I almost forgot something like I did with Nakari. I feel so bad here. So yes, you do have access to being able to confederate. It's basically just getting your first region, and you'll be able to confederate with Safri, and if you want to, you can fuck off back to Ulthuan, or you can carry on fighting around in the Southlands. You can do both, by the way, also, which actually ends up being better, because you can build up a small base in Ulthuan, keeping an eye on what's going there, just in case, because we know what happens. Morathi does come in and take over a lot of territory. Noctilus is very aggressive. Nakari, not so much, but it can happen. So you've got the option, and that gives you a little bit of extra cash to build up some foundations, to go down and deal with Kairos, which I still think is doable, because keep in mind, and I've got to be very, very clear here, since you started in the south, Kairos knows where you are, and he can mess with you, even if you leave the Southlands, right? It's very important to know that. And even then, you're not really leaving those settlements, so you can sell them off, I guess, but no, still keep in the south. Trust me, it's going to be a much more fun campaign for you if you're literally just out there doing stuff, rather than just Ulthuan, Ulthuan, Ulthuan. If you want an Ulthuan start, you've got TECLIS. The benefit of the High Elves is that you have 7 different High Elf factions, and they've all got vastly different campaigns now, so you've got a lot more to play around with. Don't go back and just stay there. Expand. There's so much that can be done in the south, especially with the new amount of power that you've got access to. So let me just give you some thoughts. Honestly, like, the High Elves didn't really need that many changes. The gameplay loop doesn't really change. The thing is, it's just additions, right? The tech tree being changed up as being the best thing that's ever happened to the High Elves, because, oh my god, was that original tech tree atrocious. It was one of the ones I hated the most. Not as bad as the original Lizardmen one, but it was pretty damn close. Everything seems to just be, let's fix up the problems. Because the High Elves, the benefit of the High Elves, I'd say, is that they did get so much content in Warhammer 2, they were constantly improved upon. Sure, it wasn't full-blown reworks, but it did make them better and better each time. Which is why I'm surprised that the High Elves have gotten so much now. I'm happy, though. The Confederation mechanic is probably one of the best things that have been implemented, and it's nice that more and more factions are getting it with time. I do think that this is a vast improvement of where we've been before. Influence being much better acquired, which means that you can get much better of the generic style special lords, because they're still generic, they've just got better traits, and that makes them much more lucrative rather than the ones with the negatives. You can get them more consistently, that feels great. The troops feel good. Tech tree really benefits the army so much that fighting with the High Elves doesn't make you feel like all you need is Sisters of Avalon. And you can still do Sisters of Avalon Doomstacks, don't you worry about that. But if you want to use other troops, why not, right? Yes, I know you're typing right now saying, why would I use anything else? And I get you, don't worry. This is one of the first factions for Warhammer 2 being brought in line with Warhammer 3. Like, the Tomb Kings being the first, Lizardmen still need help. I imagine that there's going to be some sort of update for the Skaven sometime soon. But it's good to see Warhammer 2 races being brought up. There's still a few others that need to be brought up. I mean, the Dark Elves are in desperate need. But this is more or less where we can expect things to go. And I think that's going to be very, very useful. I don't think that this is as big as the Norska rework, but let's be very clear, Norska, technically being a Race 2 game, but they only released in Race 1 and then Mortal Empires, it was a weird thing. Norska needed more help. Sonesh is perfectly fine too. Let's just be very clear here, patch 7.0 has brought in a bunch of very cool additions to a lot of factions, and I'm pretty happy about that. Hell, it doesn't even go into all the stuff like what happened with the Wars of Chaos, or whatever, but we'll have separate videos on that. Now, with all that being said, have a great day, everyone. If you want to see more, I'm live on twitch.tv/thegreatbookofgrudges. Pop by, say hi. If not, let me know what you think in the comments below to start a bit of discussion. I'll see you all again very, very soon. There's so many videos coming out today, as you can imagine. 5 for this Saturday. 5 videos. 5. The fact that I still have a voice is wild. See you guys. Have a good one.